Here's what's coming up on today's show.
Those sort of discussions with an advisor add a lot of value to really making sure that as a client, as a participant in these plans, you're sticking with your strategy. And sticking with your strategy is one of the most important elements of a successful retirement.
This is the Retire Happy podcast with John Amarino, a fiduciary financial advisor at Securus Financial in the San Diego area, and Thomas O'Connell, president of International Financial Advisory Group, Inc. in Parsippany, New Jersey. Together, they'll be keeping retirement happy from coast to coast.
Welcome back to another episode of the Retire Happy podcast. I'm your host on the West Coast, John Amarino, and I am joined, as always, by my good friend and co-host on the East Coast, Mr. Tom O'Connell. Tommy, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, John. How are you?
Good. We mentioned it on the last podcast, but pitchers and catchers reported yesterday, so spring training is in the air.
And that means spring's in the air.
Yeah, and taking Jake and Colin, his best friend, over to spring training next week. So we always hit up the practices so they can see how these guys prep, and they get a lot of face time with the players.
Excellent, and hopefully they did well with their fundraiser for their trip to Cooperstown.
Yep. Jake raised nearly $3,000. So
beautiful.
And thank you, Tommy, for your contribution, and special shout out to Steve and Gail Meeks, a couple of great advisors and friends of ours, that they actually won one of their Super Bowl squares and redonated their winnings back to Jake. So
nice,
great people. So, but folks, the first couple episodes we're talking about investments and the future of Brookstone Capital Management. And this is a show today. It's going to be geared towards those pre-retirees or those people that just can never retire, right? They just love working so much that they continue to work. And this is also going to be geared towards business owners. And what we are going to be discussing is 401k management. Tommy, tell me if I'm right or wrong here, but how many people have you talked to that really thought that their 401k was being managed by somebody, and they had no idea that all they were being given were investment options, and that it was for them?
I think a lot of people are under that preconceived notion, and it's just not the case. And I think it's the same. A lot of people, we've talked about this in the past, I run into people all the time that say, oh, what do you mean my 401k is going to be taxed, right? Or, wait, I'm in a target date fund. Isn't that an asset allocation? So we're going to talk about all those things today.
Yeah, and this is another great relationship that has been fostered by Dean and the people over at Brookstone Capital Management, right? We're always looking for resources beyond just investments. So with that, I would like to introduce our expert guest on today's show, Mr. John Blamphin. He's a CFP and AIF, and he's a veteran of the industry since 1993, so with 31 years now. And, he joined Retirement Management Systems, and today he is the Director of Operations and Research. And before that, he was a financial advisor with Valic and Retirement Strategies of Maryland. So he has a wealth of knowledge in this industry, and he has served both Tom and I's clients, and he's just been a great partner, a great resource. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. John Blamphin.
And here's today's guest, the Director of Operations and Research at Retirement Management Systems, John Blamphin.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Tom. It's great to be here. Enjoyed our relationship with Brookstone over the years, and look forward to talking about the 401k market, help people as you say, pre-retirees and even those who just can't seem to want to retire. They want to keep going, and they want to keep the money in the 401k because that's they're allowed to. They don't have to take distributions while they're still working. So it's a good opportunity for them, and here to answer any questions and help your listeners out.
Great.
Yeah, and Tom, before we really hit up John, let's talk about some of the issues that we've seen, with prospects or clients that have come in our offices and they've seen 401ks. What are some of the issues that you've really seen?
Well, some of the issues are a lack of retirement options or investment options, right? A really small menu of things that people can invest in, or no direction, meaning what we said at the beginning of the show. People who maybe think that their 401k is managed for them, but it really isn't. Or they're not sure, how much should I have here? How much should I have there? We'll talk about company stock in plans in just a few minutes with John. So those are some of the main, I think, issues that I run across.
Yeah.
And we hear that all the time. I'm sorry, John, but the number of people that come to us and through advisors, we work with advisors across the country, not just with Brookstone, but across the country, and thousands of clients. And so many people, you're right, think that they put the money in the account and either the company or the financial institution that it's with is managing the money for them. And that's simply not the case. They need to take a proactive role in how it's being invested and how it's going to help them reach their goals in retirement.
Yeah, and the other two issues I've seen, and one goes back to what you both just said about the investment management and limited funds, but the target date funds. You see these
disaster,
these plans with these target date funds, and people, it's auto rebalancing, and it's really a strategy without thought. It's just every year they're just going to cycle from equities to more bonds, and in theory, a lot of people think, well, if I'm selecting the target date fund in 2010 and it's 2008, I'm going to be safe. It's going to be more conservative. That's kind of like the tagline of it. But Tommy, I mean, I remember doing an analysis with you at our old RIA, which we won't mention, and the target date 2010 fund lost 34%. In 2008. So,
right.
The target date funds have been an issue. And then the other thing is the expense ratio and the costs. Even with the bigger plans, you might have a management administration cost that's really low, but then you peel back the onion on the cost of some of these mutual funds, 1.75%, 2%, and you're paying 2.6% in fees to manage your own 401k and get a limited, mutual fund option.
And then the last thing, and then we'll let John do some talking. We promise, folks, in just a second. But the last thing I'll say is, the people out there, when they're looking for help, right? They may call that 800 number that is provided to them by their 401k administrator. And every time they call, they might get a different person, and they get a different answer, and they get a different piece of advice. That could be a big problem, especially when so many people, the vast, vast majority of people, this is singularly their biggest retirement asset that they have out there, and you really can't afford to make mistakes with it. So correct me if I'm wrong, John, but from what I understand and from what I've read, those target date funds are also the most expensive funds typically in the menu of choices that people have, just because someone is buying say in your example the international fund of one from their own company. Mm-hmm. That international manager's not waiving those fees, so that when you're using a handful or however many funds within the family of funds that a target date manager is using, he's paying all those fees on top of it right back to his own company.
Correct. Yeah, as a fund to fund, you're going to still have the fees of the underlying funds, and then the management fee for the target date fund on top of that. So They do give some breaks, of course, with different share classes and things for holding it inside of the different 401k plans. But that, of course, depends on the size of the plan and the price breaks that they're getting with it, depending on the number of assets that are in the plan. So yes,
Right.
they can be expensive, not always, but they can be.
So give us the 10,000-foot view of how what RMS provides is
Sure.
different from all of that.
So retirement management systems has been around managing money inside of individual 401k accounts. And I'll make that distinction real quick here, is that what we do is help individuals manage their own 401k account, right? We don't do the 401k plan, although we have some experience helping companies identify good plan investment option lineups. But our main purpose and function is to help the individuals with their own individual 401k account. And we've been doing this since the early 1990s when 401ks really started becoming very popular and a lot of money started going into those plans. So the founder of my company, Mike Scarborough, was running another investment advisory firm and used that as a way to meet people and build his business. He did very well at it. And then in early 2010, decided to offer this service to other financial advisors across the country and their clients, and see if we could help them out and help their clients really build that nest egg for retirement. So we've been doing it for a good number of years, have a lot of experience, have looked at, I can't even begin to think of how many plans we have allocated, but at any given moment, we're probably allocating different strategies, different investment models across roughly 1,200 different 401k plans.
Wow.
So,
And just as a note as well, I have a couple of clients who you help me with that not only in the 401k, but have variable annuity and variable life insurance policies that you help me manage as well.
sure. The structure of those, Tom, is fairly similar, right? You have
Right.
a chassis, if you will, whether it's an annuity contract or a 401k plan, into which are dumped, a handful of investment options for the individual to choose from. So they're still required, you as an individual are still required to make decisions on your own, make investment decisions as to what is the best mix of investments that's going to suit your needs. And most people, generally speaking, just don't have the time or the knowledge or the inclination to spend the time to do it, right? And so working with a financial advisor makes a lot of sense, even though you may think, well, it's just a 401k, I can figure this out by myself. It makes a lot of sense to continue to work with a financial advisor. It doesn't have to be expensive to use a service like ours, but you're going to get a lot of value add. There are studies out there that show that the use of help, if you will, managed account service within a 401k plan can add up to 3 percentage points per year over time of your overall return. So
That's a lot.
Yeah.
that's a lot of money over time added to how much you're going to be able to live on in retirement.
And, that's one thing that from the get-go that you really preached is the advisor. We all know the benefit as planners that we can bring to our clients. But I also, even before meeting you, I was in the realm of, hey, the 401k, it is what it is. They have their maybe 15 or 20 investments, and they're just going to grow the tax time bomb, and we'll deal with it afterwards. But in being able to partner with you, and you say it best, that the value of this advisor relationship during the 401k is not only as a client, you're getting a comfort level with your advisor, but as the advisor, I'm able to say, hey, listen, if your company now offers a Roth 401k, which we're seeing a lot more companies finally do, we can sit there and look at the tax returns and help them decide how much money should go into the Roth 401k bucket, and really to start, diffusing the 401k tax time bomb before it goes off.
Correct.
And we can also help them understand those target date funds and those expense ratios. So what else do you see in terms of the value of the advisor-client relationship with RMS?
Well, that Roth feature, and it's a fairly new concept within the 401k space, is allowing a participant to contribute Roth dollars, in other words, after-tax dollars, to the 401k. So clients who perhaps didn't meet or were above the income limits to be able to contribute to a Roth IRA can now contribute to a Roth 401k. At the time of separation from service or retirement, they can roll those assets into a Roth IRA and then have tax-free income going forward. So it's a great way to sort of start the process, if you will. Maybe people have heard about the backdoor Roth IRA concepts and Roth conversions and such. It's a great way to really start putting those after-tax dollars to work that are going to grow tax-free.
Right.
So the Roth concept and knowing, as you mentioned, being able to meet with a person individually as an advisor, have an idea of what their full income is and whether that Roth contribution makes sense, adds a lot of value to a client.
And the Secure Act 2.0 now allows the company contribution or the company match to go into that Roth bucket as well.
Yeah, and that was a huge thing for the longest time because you didn't get that match went in the tax deferred side. So
that's one of the things we always preach as well. There's certain elements for maximizing your 401k. Right? First of all, you have to participate, right? So you have to know about it, and we always say at least participate up until the company match.
Right.
Otherwise,
free money.
You're just leaving money on the table. Free money. And then the other thing is you've got to set goals for the account, and working with a financial advisor is just such a great way to get a good, thorough understanding of how much do you have to save, how much do you have to earn in that account based on how long it's going to be in the account, right? The three variables that go into setting your retirement income amount are that. How long it's going to be there, how much are you putting in, and how much is it going to earn? So the advisor can help you set those goals and then set a risk tolerance for you. There are certain questionnaires sort of quantitatively scored that you can go through, and we have those as well, part of our process. But the interaction with the advisor to really determine, hey, I scored aggressive growth. I don't really think that's me. Should we back off? What would we have to change if we backed off on my risk profile? Those sort of discussions with an advisor add a lot of value to really making sure that as a client, as a participant in these plans, you're sticking with your strategy. And sticking with your strategy is one of the most important elements of a successful retirement. You can't be moving to cash because you don't like what's going on the horizon in the economy.
Well, and even more importantly, moving to cash in a 401k is a monumental mistake because you lose that dollar cost averaging. And I tell people that's the one advantage that a 401k has over an IRA. And if you can't contribute an IRA when you're retired, if the market's down, you're still shoving money into your 401k and you're buying things at a discounted rate.
Right. And as you approach retirement, we see a lot of people also, sometimes they will reduce the risk in their overall portfolio. Maybe they're on target to reach their goal. And I always say, why speed if you're going to be on time to get to work, right? You don't need to take extra risk if you don't need to. But for those contributions to go in at a higher risk profile so that potentially you're buying those equities that have underperformed, and continuing to take advantage of that dollar cost averaging theory, then that's also a great way to do it. So you can split the current balance and how that's invested from the future contributions and how those are being invested.
And from our side of the table, when we have you doing this for us, John, it helps with our planning and overall asset allocation for the client too, right? Because you're providing us the results and the account holdings and things like that. So then we can look at this and say, well, that 401k you have, so much more in equities, we'll say, for this conversation. So now what John and I might do is say, okay, because you have X percent over equities there, well, we may need to take your private holdings and do something slightly different with it. We don't want to duplicate that, because then that's not true asset allocation.
Correct. And one of the things to keep in mind with the 401k, I always tell advisors, and it's fairly obvious, is that 401ks, the investment lineups in a 401k are really built for accumulation. Right? You're in your working years, they're built for accumulation. So what we generally don't find is a very good mix of fixed income options within a 401k. So you could take that private money, the money outside of the 401k, and diversify it further in some fixed income options, perhaps some annuities, that sort of thing, that can be a little bit more conservative with opportunity for growth, but that aren't pure equity related.
Yeah, and that's, right. It's all about diversification, and that's between, if you can put yourself in something like a fixed index annuity where you have a area of principal growth protection, that allows you to take other calculated risks in other parts, like your 401k.
401k.
Yeah. And, John, we were talking about it, before we started the show. How many people or companies, plan administrations, do you see that are doing rebalancing in the plan, and how you guys take the automation rebalancing and put a better twist on it?
So there are a lot of the financial institutions, I shouldn't say a lot, a good number of the financial institutions on their record-keeping platforms have the option for a participant to go in and check a box that says, rebalance this account quarterly or rebalance semi-annually. Our approach to that is that when you rebalance, it should be tactical in nature, right? If there's good momentum going into the marketplace and you want some of those investment options that have grown to continue to grow and not sell too prematurely, you want to avoid the rebalance and let it ride, essentially. You're staying within your risk profile as long as things haven't grown too much. So the rebalancing should be a tactical decision. It shouldn't necessarily just be a systematic calendar quarter type event. You want to underweight and overweight tactically, as I mentioned, whether you want to hold a little bit less international, more large cap growth, etc. So you want to just do all of that very decisively and not let just the system do it for you.
Now, we run into clients, as I'm sure you have, obviously, who have company stock in their 401k. How do you handle that?
We always recommend that no one hold any more than 10% company stock. There have been, we talked about it a little bit before the show, several examples of large companies, seemingly steady companies, go under, and participants in the 401k plan were hurt detrimentally because of the company stock that they held in the account. Companies like Enron, Lucent back in the day, a lot of different examples. And they actually changed the rules a bit where you're not allowed to force a participant to hold company stock for an extended period of time. You're still allowed to give a match in company stock, but the participant has the right to be able to sell that and move into other investments. So we can hold company stock in what we do for clients. There's a lot of sometimes decent reasons to do it. A lot of people just have an affinity for the company and they want to hold the company stock in the plan, and that's okay. And we can allocate around that company stock position. Sometimes it'll overweight towards a little more risky profile. That's okay with that company stock position.
And you can do that with pretty much any asset within that menu of choices that they have too, and not just the company stock.
Sure, we could. Most people who hire us to make those decisions, though. So we're going to stick with our model. But yes, if someone said, "Listen, I really feel good about international or emerging markets or something like that, or high yield," we can certainly take special instructions and manage that account appropriately. The key is working with the advisor to make sure that we're not taking undue risk and putting the client's retirement in jeopardy.
Right.
So they need to stay in touch with the advisor, have a reason for doing what they want to do, and not just be gambling with their 401k money.
And Tom and John, you guys bringing up the stock options inside the plans. I mean, that's huge. I mean, to have that proactive planning, I've had clients that, they've had some very huge, more nuclear tax time bombs off options. And John Narcessian over at PIMCO, who teaches an options course, he talks a lot about highly educated CFOs or upper management people with these stocks, whether it's inside the 401k, not taking advantage of NUA or really missing the boat on really optimizing their options because they don't quite understand the taxes and all the nuances that go with these options. So, that's a huge point. But, John, I want to do one point of clarification for anyone thinking, wow, this is a great service to use. You guys can only manage what the plan administration plan has given, correct? Correct, you're not going to sit there and be able to say, oh, no, we can go out and invest. Folks, you are what your plan is. The investment options, that's it.
Yeah, we like to think about it as we're just playing with the toys in the sandbox that are given to us. All right, so we can't go out and get new ones. Now, 401k plans over the years have started adding what we refer to as brokerage link accounts, or sometimes they're known as mutual fund windows. The Thrift Savings Plan just recently added a mutual fund window for federal employees. And those types of accounts do allow you to take a portion of your 401k savings and open a brokerage account. Now, sometimes the plan administrator will put restrictions on it, how much you can put into the brokerage account, what types of investments you can use in the brokerage account. But it does allow for further diversification and more opportunity to invest as if it's a straight brokerage account, invest in anything that's out there. So we do manage those types of accounts as well. We can, open that account, move money over there, and we have certain portfolios, model portfolios that we use, combination of exchange traded funds, ETFs, and mutual funds. So we will not do individual stocks over there. Most plans limit that so that you're not allowed to go buy individual stocks within the brokerage link window, and some of them limit it only to mutual funds. But there is that opportunity. I would say probably 30% of plans now offer a brokerage link opportunity. But for the most part, you're limited with what the plan administrator chooses. And we do see some plan administrators, they just do not do good fiduciary reviews of the investment lineup inside the plan. So if you see something that you think is a little bit off in terms of an investment option, you have every right to go to your plan administrator and say, hey, I think we need to add something, in this asset class because, I'd like to invest in it. Or if you think that a particular fund is underperforming its benchmark, you have a right as a plan participant to go talk to your plan administrator and ask them to do a review of those investment options.
And would you help that with having that conversation?
We certainly could. I mean, again, we generally play with the toys in the sandbox that are given to us, but we will let a participant know, a client of ours know, if a particular fund doesn't really seem to be holding its own against a benchmark.
Right.
So we can certainly help do that. We generally don't have the authority to go to their plan administrator on our own, so we would need their help in doing that. But yeah, it's something to keep an eye on as a 401k participant. The the plan administrator is a fiduciary to the plan. So they are responsible for managing that plan for the benefit of its participants. So as a participant in the plan, an individual participating, sending money into the plan every month, every paycheck, they're supposed to be doing it for your benefit. So make sure they are in all aspects of the plan. In terms of costs, a lot of costs have come under scrutiny recently, and they've done a good job, I think, overall of trying to minimize the costs that are in 401k plans. There used to be some real egregious investment options, management fees within the plan, and they've done a good job of expelling those.
Yeah, I can remember probably not even that far long ago. I think Fidelity or somebody did a study, and I think the average plan fee was somewhere around 3.5–4% a year. And the problem is that it's not something that's subtracted from the participant's account, so they don't see that.
They don't see it as a line item, correct?
Right. So it's hard to make people aware of that. They say, well, nobody charges me anything, but if you match up your Wellington fund in your private portfolio compared to your 401k portfolio, look at that total return number, and that's where you're going to see that.
That's right. So it's a real key to one of the points we always make to people is know your investment options, know the options for the plan as a whole. Right, the investment options are the key element, generally speaking. And every year you will get a disclosure document from your plan administrator listing all the investments, their 1, 3, 5, maybe 10-year returns, but more importantly, their administrative fees, the management fees of that fund itself. So keep an eye on those. Make sure they're not creeping up above 1%. Really, any fund within a 401k nowadays should not be in excess of 1%.
And John, so we talked a lot about the importance of, what you guys do with the plan and the corroboration with the advisor, you and the client. But there's some other things that you guys do aside from just the investment management in terms of, quarterly research and whatnot. You mind talking about some of the extra features that you guys provide?
Well, really core to what we do is look at the allocations every quarter and make decisions as to whether we want to underweight, overweight different asset classes within our strategies. So we manage money and help individuals manage their own money with 7 risk profiles, right? From conservative all the way to aggressive growth. So it's a scale of 1 to 7 is how we approach things. So we're going to look at the asset class weightings, which within each of those different profiles, we call them sleeves, right? So the number 6 growth sleeve, for instance, is probably 80% equities, 20% fixed income and cash, let's say. But every quarter we're going to look at that and we're going to determine whether we want to be more aggressive or less aggressive within certain parameters. If you're in a number 6 growth portfolio with us, you're not all of a sudden going to become a number 4 growth and income. We're not going to reduce your risk substantially of our own choosing, right? That's more of a decision with the 3 of us, your advisor, and yourself, to help determine which profile is right. But within that number 6 profile, we're going to overweight and underweight things to try and take advantage of what we see coming down the pike, economically speaking and market speaking. So we do that, and all of a sudden maybe your number 6 profile looks 85% equities and 15% fixed income. So that's the active management benefit that we bring to the table, separate and apart from what a target date fund would do, or any other type of sort of risk approach within a 401k investment option. So it's a little more active management on that quarter analysis, and we keep the advisor informed of what's going on. So, Tom, we send you information every quarter about what our models look like and
Right.
how each of your clients is invested with us, and then enables you then to call up a client, just have a quick review. Here's what's going on this quarter. Look for changes coming down the road.
And you
So
provide
keep
a
everybody
quarter,
informed.
right? And you provide a nice quarterly write-up too, as okay, hey, this is like what we do through Brookstone, right? Hey, this is what happened in the past quarter. This is what we see forward thinking for the next quarter, and so this is our rationale for what we did and what we're going to do.
Correct. We do just a short write-up. We don't like to bore people with our economic forecasts and market forecasts too much, but we like to keep them informed and give them some backdrop as to why we're doing something. Right. So it's people have hired us because they don't want to do this. A lot of them have an interest and they don't have the time, but generally speaking, they're putting their faith in us to do the right thing. But we do want to keep them informed. So we do have that nice quarterly write-up, and it's good for the advisors as well as the clients.
And you brought up another great point, John, that the collaboration of going maybe from a 6 to a 4. And at what point in time you might want to go from a 6 to a 4 to a 3. And, Tommy and I, we've talked about it in the past, the retirement red zone, where it's your last couple years of employment and your first 5 to 10 years of retirement. Those are the most vital time financially for your 401k and your life savings. And so, when you're a couple of years out, you've built that mountain. Now you want to start to go into a preservation mode. And I see a lot of people, and Tommy, I know you do too, because we talk and we collaborate, and help each other out on some case designs. A lot of people are coming in locked and loaded, 90, 100% equities. And, there was people when I first got in this industry, and Tom, you and I talked about this a lot when I was a rookie advisor back in 2012. I was still talking to people that were digging out and delayed retirement 3 or 4 years because they lost 40, 50% in the '08 crash, right, Tommy? I mean, what did you see?
Yeah, same thing. And that's one of the great things I think about RMS's program is like what we do. Our thought process is, hey, we're trying to protect you on the downside. Our goal has never been to make you 20 and 30%. Our goal is to get you a very decent rate of return, but most importantly, because we are working mostly with pre-retirees and retirees, is, hey, let's limit that downside. Let's make sure that you're not losing the 20 and 30%. And I think that's a big plus to what John's company does is it helps us do that for our clients.
Well, that sequence of returns that you alluded to there, right? The
right,
5 years
absolutely.
before and after, right? If you have a downturn as soon as you retire, it's quite detrimental to your retirement ability to make sure you're not going to outlive your money. So part of the process that we invoke here is every year you're going to get from us a quantitatively scored risk profile questionnaire. Fairly simple. And the highest score is going to be your time frame. How many more years until you start withdrawing money from this account? So that's the biggest factor that goes into the profiling for you. And when we get that back, if there's a change in that profile, we're immediately in touch with the financial advisor who can then review it with the client and make sure that, hey, do we want to decrease risk at this point? Are we ready to do that? Are you really going to retire in this time frame? How else do you feel about risk? And then we'll take that direction from the advisor as to whether we in fact want to reduce the risk in the account or leave it go for another year. So, but that yearly review that we instigate is crucial to successful management.
Right. Good.
Well, just looking back at our time together, the importance that you bring, that other just strong arrow, in the arsenal of financial tools that a lot of people don't know exist. And really, imagine you're a 401k person, you're just kind of winging it, right? You're just taking the target date fund. Like, hey, I'm going to retire in 2030. Just do the target date and I'll just, shove money in it. And I love the personalization because, Tommy, you and I always preach there is no cookie cutter solution. Every person, just like with their DNA, every person has their own financial DNA. And, to be able to sit here and not only, you said it best, John, and it's a mantra that Tommy and I, again, hammer home, stay the course of that plan. That's the key to success, is having something where, the money's being managed according to a plan that's been designed by the client, the advisor, and you. And knowing when to dial down the risks, knowing that the market's going to do what it's going to do. No one can control it, but we're always looking at that 360-degree view where clients tend to get that tunnel vision. So, the value you've brought, my clients have been happy with you guys over the years. Tommy, your clients have been happy. You've told me that.
Yep. For sure.
It's been a great partnership, and I thank you for everything your company's done and the value you've brought our clients.
Well, we appreciate the relationship with you two and Brookstone as a whole. Hopefully we've got many more years of servicing clients ahead of us.
Absolutely. And I'm assuming you'll be down in Maryland for our September meeting so that we can all go out for a couple of adult beverages and enjoy each other, sarsaparillas, as my English friend says.
Perhaps catch an Orioles game.
Yeah,
perhaps.
Yeah, then talk about a solid team. They're going
to have a good team this year.
Their way up.
Yeah.
Soon to be under new ownership. Angelos is selling.
Yep.
Yeah. The happy times for you guys. So that's great.
Yeah.
So, well, John, we appreciate you coming on and sharing all this wisdom. And, we can't say enough to the job you and your company does. So thank you very much.
Great staff.
My pleasure.
Great. You have a great staff too, John. They're just phenomenal.
Customer service is, that's one of our goals.
They're awesome.
Internal measurements of how we think employees succeed.
Yeah, the person I'm in contact with most is Kathleen Tesh, and she's awesome. She's just awesome. So
yes.
So, well, folks,
I'll let her know you said so.
Yeah,
please do. Now I hope that doesn't cost you money as a company, but
we pay them well. Not well enough, I'm sure, but.
Well, folks,
all right.
That's going to wrap up another episode of the Retire Happy podcast. We appreciate you guys tuning in. We appreciate John and everything he does, and for spending, almost an hour of his time to help educate you. And, folks, one thing that Tom and I had mentioned off air after we talked with Dean is, we want to hear from you. And if you guys have topics on future shows that you want, and that it's not just investments, anything that you have questions about or concerns about in retirement, let us know. Send us an email and or comment on YouTube as to what you want to hear, and we will tailor shows for you. Because folks, that's what we want, right, Tommy? We want people to retire happy, and we really want to be the go-to resource for our listeners in all things retirement, whether it's relocating, traveling, living healthy in retirement, or how to manage your 401k. So, and John is gracious enough. Check out the show notes on the Retire Happy podcast website. We're going to have some resources from today's website. So, folks, thanks again for joining in and listening to another episode of the Retire Happy podcast. So long, folks.
It's easy to get in touch with John and Thomas. If you're more on the West Coast, give John a call at 858-935-6210. That's 858-935-6210, or go online to GoSecurus.com. That's GoSecurus.com. If you're more of an East Coaster, then call Thomas, 973 973-394-0623. That's 973-394-0623, and online at internationalfinancial.com. That's internationalfinancial.com. And you can, of course, always just check the description or the show notes section of today's show for all that contact information. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcasting apps, and we'll see you next time on the Retire Happy Podcast.
Investment advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, LLC BCM, a registered investment advisor. BCM, Securus Financial, and International Financial Advisory Group are independent of each other. Insurance products and services are not offered through BCM, but are offered and sold through individually licensed and appointed agents. The opinions expressed by John Iamarino, Thomas O'Connell, and guests on this show are their own and are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Past performance cannot be used as an indicator to determine future results. Any strategies mentioned may not be suitable for everyone. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. Before acting on any information mentioned, please consult with a qualified tax or investment advisor to determine if it is suitable for your specific situation. This program is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information with regard to the subjects covered. Registered investment advisors and investment advisor representatives act as fiduciaries for all of our investment management clients. We have an obligation to act in the best interests of our clients and to make full disclosure of any conflicts of interest, if any exist. Please refer to our firm brochure, the ADV 2A Item 4, for additional information.